Hi fantasy managers, welcome to FPL Team Talk. So in this video I'm going to go through my watch list for game week 11. I'm going to talk about some of the popular transfers in, some of them out, give you my thoughts on those, and then look at a couple of players I'm targeting for game week 11. So as always, if you're new to the channel, please help support us by subscribing, hitting that like button, and in the meantime, let's get into it. So first player we'll have a look at is Douglas Luiz of Aston Villa. He costs 5.6 million and he's been brought in by 128,000 FPL managers already this week, and it's pretty understandable. He had a double-digit haul the other day. He picked up another assist at the weekend, and he's got decent fixture away at Forest, then at home to Fulham. Then they get a bit trickier. Tottenham away. Fulham, Bournemouth away is fine. After that, the fixtures really do turn, and I can understand he is quite a cheap way into that Villa midfield, and they are scoring so many goals. I think there's only Newcastle that's scored more goals in the Premier League this season. So all of those reasons are understandable. One thing I would say is, in terms of expected goal involvement, his numbers, underlying stats, are pretty good. 0.39 is decent, especially when you're only paying 5.6 million. I kind of get that. If you take penalties out of the equation, it's back down to 0.18, which is what he's been in his last 6 seasons, even at Girona, I think, and even then when he went to Villa for the last 4 years. He's expected goal involvement around about 0.1, and he's a centre sort of midfielder that he's holding, so he's not normally the sort of players that we would be targeting in FPL. So is there anything other than that should deter us and suddenly put him in our sides? I agree with the fixtures look great. It's only short term maybe, but he is on pens, and that's what's boosting his figures. Already Aston Villa have got 3 penalties this season. The most any team's got over the last couple of years is 6. Arsenal are already on that. So perhaps this season there's going to be more penalties than there has been in the past. That just look like it's going to be the case with those underlying numbers. How many more will Villa get? Well, if they keep up the rate they're getting, then yeah, he's going to get 6 or 7 more goals from the spot this season. If you think that is the case, then yeah, quite possibly he's a good asset. I'm not so sure he can keep those numbers up, and Villa are going to get that many penalties. So for me, he's just one that I'm going to avoid. I think if you want to bring him in just because he's an enabler, I think there's just better options out there. I even would much prefer to go someone like Gordon, who's pretty much nailed at the moment. Even the likes of Palmer, I think, is a much better option, definitely more longer term going. Or even some likes of Andringa, who's got decent short-term fixes as well. So for me, I kind of get the hype about why he's going for it. He's just not anyone that's going to interest me as an FPL manager. I just don't think. I would much rather pay the extra money, go to someone Derby, or go down to a Palmer or someone like that, who I think has just got longer-term, better prospects. But yeah, I can see why people are bringing him in, definitely. Next on our list, then, we're going to go for Ederson Nketiah. And again, I can definitely see why people are bringing him in. 5.5, and he's just got a hat-trick at home to Sheffield United. His underlying stats look decent as well. 8 games he started this season. I didn't realise it was that many. I did consider bringing him in on a wild card. What prevented me, I think, was the fact that the side looked so good across the whole starting 11 that it would have to have been the likes of Haaland that would have had to have dropped out to bring in Nketiah in. And his fixture next weekend against Newcastle doesn't look very inviting at all. So with 161,000 managers bringing him in, I feel it's a little bit of a knee-jerk. And is this the right way? Is this the right week to bring him in? If you are perhaps worried about price rises and you want to bring him in for the longer-term fixtures, yeah, maybe I can see that. Or if you really feel that you need to move from another striker or come off of Pedro because you're worried about minutes, although I don't see what's changed in terms of that, then yeah, can bring him in. Again, to get ahead of the price rise. But again, away at Newcastle, one of the best defences in the league, I'm not sure I'll be targeting that. But the fixtures look great into game week 10 and beyond. Even possible, you could, when City's fixtures look very tough, could you, and I'm considering it, moving from Haaland to Nketiah. Saves a lot of money, but I would dare not spend that money because I'm going to definitely want Haaland come game week 16 to bring him back in. But Eddie Nketiah looks good. The one thing that sort of shadow that looms over him is that Jesus could be back. Now, the words were last week that, and I'm going to read it, might lose him for a few weeks. So it was a muscle sort of injury that he sustained. So how long is Jesus going to be out for? And will Nketiah keep him out the side? He has played 8 games and Jesus has been very slowly integrated into the side from these injuries. So there is a prospect of Jesus' injury record doesn't appear to be that great recently, that Nketiah could have a longer run than you could possibly want. But I feel with Jesus there constantly in the background, it feels like Nketiah is going to be one of those players that just, even with 3 goals in the back pocket from the last game, it's just going to have his place constantly under pressure from Jesus and Trossard, who can play up there as well, and even Martinelli. So he's just a player that I'm going to constantly worry about. For me, great fixtures, possibly as a player that I could bring in for Burnley at home, but longer term, if Jesus is back, I'm just not sure. Great differential though, and I can see why people could definitely want to go for him. Brian Mbeumo then, people all the rage at the start of the season, and then he's get goal and assist at the weekend, double-digit haul, and his other stats with penalties just look really good. 135,000 managers bringing him in. Nailed on pens, 6 goals, 2 assists, pretty much matching his XGI this season, 67 points. He looks really good. But again, that many managers bringing him in. I don't think the West Ham game is a bad one. It's not necessarily one I'd want to target. But those fixtures against Liverpool and Arsenal do not look very nice. I'm not expecting many Brentford returns. Could they return away at Liverpool and at home to Arsenal? Definitely. Am I expecting or am I targeting those fixtures? I don't think I am. So for a lot of people to be bringing him in this week does again feel a little bit knee-jerk off the back of that double-digit haul. And if I'm going for players, again, I think the likes of Matoma would be a much better player, or Diaby. They've got much better fixtures. If you've got no other fixtures, no other players to bring in or issues to deal with, and you want to target him for game week 16 and beyond, I kind of get that. It's not even 16, is it? Game week 13 and 14, the fixtures will turn with that Luton home game. So you could bring him in this week, bench him for the next 2, and then bring it, and then start playing him after that. I can see that move working out, and that looks quite nice. If you've got that luxury though to leave 6.6 million on the bench, that's a good position to be in. And you're losing a midfield slot for 2 games there, which I just think there's so many good options out there. I'm not sure I'd want to put him on there. But if you feel that you've got a side to cater for him being on the bench and losing 2 of those games, why not go for it? Kaoru Matoma then is a player that I've owned all throughout the season. I actually got rid of him on a wild card. It was very close between him and Andingra, and he blanked in the last game, and I've just now stuck with Andingra. I don't know if that's going to work out for me or not, but for 1.5 million, I actually felt it was a decent move. But 91,000 people have moved Matoma out, has blanked in a couple of games. Decent underlying stats. The next 3 fixtures look really good. And only 2 sides have scored more goals than Brighton this season. So I do feel, with them being 5th in the XGI league in terms of goals expected, and those fixtures, there's just going to be goals in that Brighton side. 6.5. If you held him, I don't know why you'd be getting rid of him now. Maybe, I can't think of many better options. Maybe you want to go for a Diaby, but I just think Brighton's longer term fixtures looks better than Brighton's. Again, I just think that he's a decent player to hold. Everton away is not a bad fixture. Sheffield United is a very good fixture. Forest away, not the worst. Chelsea, quite frankly, Brighton can score, as we proved, against anyone. And Matoma is about as nailed as anyone that can be in that side. Played all but 1 game this season. So, for me, if I had him, I'd definitely be holding him. I brought him in on a wild card. No, so I didn't bring him in on a wild card. Could easily have done it, and Dingra came in instead, but it was very close. I know lots of people brought him in on a wild card, so after 1 game, I don't see, just because he's blanked, you would get rid of him, but 91,000 managers have. The next one, these are 2 players that I'm thinking of going to after my wild card. So I've got Darwin Nunes as an obvious kind of player to bring in, 7.4 million. God, you know what? He's only started 4 games this season. He's got 4 goals, 5 assists. His expected goal involvement is just off the scale. It's beyond the likes of Haaland. 1.51 expected goal involvement per game, per 90 minutes. That's absolutely outstanding. There's no way that he can maintain those sort of stats. But as a couple of weeks punt, maybe beyond, he is tempting. Luton away, Brentford at home, not bad. You'd have Manchester City away. I wouldn't be interested in playing him in that one. But beyond that, the fixtures look really good. It's the age-old question. We don't know how long Diaz is going to be away. Is he nailed up front with Gakpo now fit? You've got Jota scoring goals as well. We know Salah would definitely play. So one player that sort of front 3 has got to always be rotated. I think he's first choice at the moment, but there's always going to be that headache around Nunes with does he start. I think he is first choice at the moment, and if he is, and you think he's going to get 90 minutes, there's some great fixtures for him, and he definitely looks worth a punt. At 7.4, he's not the cheapest, and if you've got Watkins and Haaland, it's a difficult call, and it's difficult to see how you can get him in, but he is one that I'm considering for a punt. And it's easy, so we'll see why. He just looks really good. The only problem I have with him, my wildcard side looks really good, except for game week 13 when a lot of teams play each other. And as you can see, Liverpool play City. So it's almost I want a player for that week. And who have they got? Manchester City. So he's just not a player that fits in with my plans. Could he hurt me? Yes. Is he a good differential? Yes. Do I want him? I think I do. Am I going to be able to get him? I don't think I can. The last one I'm going to go in for, 124,000 people have brought him in so far. Not surprising. Great underlying stats, goals galore. He's been brilliant this season. I had him, took him out on a wild card, and I just favoured Bowen in the end. 10 games, 8 goals, 1 assist. The fixtures were what turned it for me. Home to Chelsea. Chelsea have a decent sort of defensive record. Away at Wolves is not going to be an easy game to score in. Then you got Villa, which you can ski them scoring in, and then Man City away. I just went for Bowen because I think he's got better longer term fixtures. But Son playing up front, yet to be seen, but we expect to see him on penalties. He just scores goals all the time. I can see why people are bringing him in, but those fixtures, for me, fixtures are absolute king. It costs quite a bit of money. It's over 9.5 million now, I think. So for me, I can see why you're bringing him in. I'm risking going without and spreading that money across elsewhere. But yeah, you can't argue with Son. I can see why that many people were bringing him in. Would I want him? I think I would. But I can only have 5 midfielders, and I'm just going to spread that money and use it wisely elsewhere. That's it for this one then. Let me know in the comments below if there's anyone that you think I've completely overlooked that I should be considering for game week 11. If you enjoyed that video, if you found it useful, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, we'll come back at you with a team selection before the game week 11 deadline. In the meantime, take care. I shall speak to you soon.